You're listening to the God Stories Radio podcast with Fritz, Mike, and Tina, bringing hope, comfort, and encouragement through the power of the Christian testimony. Listen live on the Mixlr app and follow us on your favorite platform, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, and radio.com. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Twitter at God Stories Radio.
To this edition of God Stories Radio. This is session 246. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Tina.
What's going on Thursday night right here?
A rainy Thursday night.
Yeah,
it is.
Even had some lightning.
Yes, we did.
We might have some thunder, too, while we're doing this.
I had a few.
Oh.
In fact, I had some work to do this afternoon, and I sent my wife on her merry way by herself, and as soon as she left, the power went out.
I took the light with me, baby.
So I took the opportunity to go out and plant something.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Want to welcome everybody on Mixlr tonight. Looks like we have a great crowd. You have dialed into a good one. I see my buddy Robert Herman, Mr. J. Calhoun, and I see somebody else. If you follow us on Mixlr, I can tell who you are. So I would love for you to do that, especially if you're a guest of our guest tonight. That'd be wonderful. But welcome everybody to God Stories Radio. Welcome to the GSR family. What's going on across the table, Mikey?
Well, I will say it's, with all that lockdown stuff, to see things starting to open up a little bit. It's nice to see things moving a little bit. Even was able to spend Saturday morning at the guys' breakfast.
Nice.
It was nice.
Oh, yeah. The Bob Evans is back in action.
Well, yeah. We had, if we had more than 6 people show up, then they have to sit at another table.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
But there was 5 of us, so we're good.
Okay.
It was awesome.
I might come back if there's just that many.
That's great. I'm glad you got
it was getting too big for
that.
me.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing over there, Angie?
Getting ready.
Wow. That's a lot of paper.
Yes, it is.
I don't know that we have that much time. All right. What's going on over there on your side of the world?
Well, Oliver just had his first grooming today.
I know it.
My baby. My fur baby. Yeah.
I heard that he musked the place.
He did.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he did it. And poor thing, he's just scared. He's just such a little scaredy cat. He's a dog, but he's a scaredy cat.
Wow.
And he's the sweetest dog.
Scaredy cat dog.
Yeah. We got him in January. He's a rescue, and he's just terrified of most things. But
you wouldn't know that, though, by the way he barks,
right?
Especially when Mike comes over. You'd think he'd know Mike by now, but nope. No. Still gives him a bad time.
Yep.
Well, we had that Corona that I wasn't able to come for about a month or so missed me for about 4 or 5 weeks.
He doesn't bark as much at you now.
No. As soon as he sees who it is, when the doorbell goes off, the tail starts wagging.
Yeah.
I always like what Marley used to do. Marley'd give him a bad time, then run out past him.
Yeah.
Then she'd come back in, turn around, woof at him, and go about it her own way. That dog was something else. I'm telling you what.
Well, she does visit upon occasion, so you may be in for a treat in the future.
Okay.
I know, right?
Oh, but yeah, that was my
my big event of the day besides getting paint at the Home Depot.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, some painting's going on, Fritz.
Yeah.
Rough day in the office.
Kitchen is about to get repainted.
It's about to get real in the kitchen. No doubt about that.
Well, Home Depot's doing some good business is all I can say.
Oh,
Boy,
sure
don't you
did.
know it, man. You got to wait an hour to get in the paint line.
Yeah.
Really? Well, you get locked down. Everybody's thinking, okay, well, I have time now to do this and that. So
Yep.
that's what happened.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I get it.
Lots of people there. Very excited about our guests today.
Man, me too. I was going to say, let's waste no more time. Who do we have?
Well, I'm really thrilled because this lovely lady is a very, very, very special friend of mine. She has become such a part of my life. I can't even describe our friendship because I feel like it's a spiritual friendship because it touches me in such a way that it's like a sisterhood, but it's beyond that. And it's just so special to me. And ever since she came into my life, we've just kind of been sort of inseparable. Her and another friend of ours. It's just been such a blessing to just have her be a part of my life. And the thing that I love about her is she just brings joy wherever she goes. She just wants to be a blessing. Yeah. She's just a lovely lady.
She's been quite the blessing to GSR.
Yeah,
she has. Right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so proud and honored to welcome my friend, Miss Angie Moore. Welcome,
Angie, welcome.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tina, Fritz, and Mike.
Thank you for saying yes.
It's a blessing to be here. Right back at you, Tina.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off tonight with a little thing called Two Truths and a Lie. And it's probably been out there for a while, but I learned this from First United Methodist Church where I go to. Pastor Chris has done it a few times with the volunteer group and then also during service. So it's a little icebreaker. We're going to start out with two truths and a lie. So basically, I'm going to tell you two things that are true, and one of them is going to be a lie. And if you're interested...
That's a lie.
So if you're interested, you can message, and at the end of this podcast, we'll tell you which one's the lie. So number one, my paternal grandfather taught my father and his three uncles to run moonshine or white lightning on the milk truck. True story. So my dad was the oldest of the 7 children. And
you just told us it wasn't a lie.
Well,
I was going to say it was going to be true anyway.
Well, the fact that you said white lightning leads me to believe that you already knew that it was the truth.
Well, we'll see.
Quit giving us the answers, Angie. You're making it too easy.
You can tell she's a Christian.
Not really. It gets pretty good. So the time period is like during the Depression. Grandma actually put her foot down and told my grandpa that he needed to get right with God and stop being a bad role model for these young boys. And I think Grandpa, the way I understand it, he was just trying to make a little money to help get him through.
Right.
Okay, so that's number one. Number two, music has been in my family's DNA, I believe. Emmylou Harris is my cousin. My brother Barry sang for the Beach Boys and is on the cover of an album. My sister Greta and my late brother Marlon were tested in school. This was primary school for their musical ability, and they were off the charts. The music instructor came to visit our home, and this was my mom and my stepdad, Pop. They wanted permission to be able to give them free lessons for piano and music lessons. Mom and Pop said yes. Okay, the last one is I was the 1974 WCLT radio station St. Valentine's Day contest winner. And I received, as part of that package, I got the use of a brand new Buick. Now, this was in 1974 for the weekend. The only problem was I didn't know how to drive.
Was it a LeSabre?
It was. It was top of the line. Ron Klein Buick.
I know about all them Buicks.
Back in my hometown of Nurka, as we used to say. I also, so anyway, I didn't know how to drive a car yet. I hadn't had lessons. I was going to have private lessons, and my brother got to use it and he got to take his girlfriend out. Now, I worked at State Farm at the time. I was a senior, and I worked half a day in the co-op program, office education program, and I worked half a day at State Farm at the regional office. And the guys, I worked in the maintenance department back then. Of course, everyone used electric typewriters back then. what I did, I received calls from all the admin people there whenever their typewriter broke down. I had to pull the index card out and write a note down, and the maintenance guys would take the cart and go get the typewriter and bring it back. Anyway, I digress here. So the other things I got as my gift was I got a Bible from Martha's Gift Shop. I got to have a steak dinner and a heart necklace with a pearl on it, and a huge box of chocolates, a case of Coca-Cola, and some roses.
Wow.
Whoa.
So it was quite the deal. Okay, so that's it.
Wow. So we got to figure out which one is the fib.
That's right.
She's making it pretty tough because she's making it sound like all three of these things actually happened. I think my favorite, though, is the moonshine story with Grandma putting her foot down.
Yes, I know. Now, Grandma didn't tell me this story. I heard a little bit from my dad. My dad passed away 95, but back in the day, I think he was pretty proud of, running that moonshine.
All right. Well, you guys heard it from Angie. So for those of you on Mixlr, if you're on the chat, you can do your best attempt to try and guess which one is the lie. Story number 1, story number 2, or story number 3.
Can you just go down the list very briefly?
Story number 1 was the moonshine story.
Was moonshine.
Story
number 2 was the musical siblings.
Yep.
Right.
With gifts.
Right.
And story number 3 was the contest, Valentine's Day contest winner.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Radio contest winner.
Yes. So basically you had to...
Come on, Jay Calhoun. I know you want to guess. Get on the text. Come on now. Come on, Robert Herman.
And if you're out there, Big Brother Barry, don't be giving it away.
Hopefully Big Brother Barry is listening. We hope so.
Yes.
We do have we have a weigh-in.
All right. Okay, so...
hang on, Angie.
Okay.
Let's give him some time now.
All right.
She said she was going to do it at the end.
Relax.
Yes, she's going to reveal it at the end
no
of
fun.
her testimony.
Okay, all right. Okay, guys. So she's going to reveal it at the end, so you got to hang around.
Okay.
So we have a couple of guesses already, and I'll reveal those towards the end.
Awesome. So. And I'll just say one other thing that we'll give the reveal at the end, but at the end, I'm going to give you a few tips. All those people that have had a hard time getting a hold of some bathroom tissue and some other things, I've got some great tips for you.
Oh, wow.
That cost $0 or, stay tuned.
All right. Sounds good.
It's kind of wiping the slate clean.
Okay, so a little bit about myself. I am the middle child of 5 kids. I have a brother and sister older, brother and sister younger. My youngest brother, who's 2 years younger than me, passed away in 1999. We all grew up in Kentucky. Both my parents, both sets of grandparents, lived in a very rural part of Kentucky, Appalachian area. Where we lived as kids, where I was born, was like in the Daniel Boone country. And I loved growing up there. And,
a lot of my family's from Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville. That's right.
Which was right across the bridge from Cincinnati.
Right. Now, we were in, I was born in Mount Sterling, but we lived in, the closest city was Moorhead. It was about an hour from Lexington. But anyway, my parents, we'll start with my dad's side of the family. They lived along the river, the Licking River. We lived about 5 miles from them. And my dad was the oldest of 7 kids. He was born on the year of the Great Depression on St. Valentine's Day when they had the big massacre in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
He was in the Korean War, got hurt over there, was in the hospital in Germany for several months before they flew him back home. I know that when he was in service, he was sending his paycheck home to mom and dad to help cover costs.
Mm-hmm.
On my mom's side of the family, there were 15 in that tribe.
Wow.
And my mom was the oldest female and the third oldest child. And she has outlived anyone in her family. She's 86 going on 87. Grandparents and everything. She's lived longer than anybody. And she's probably almost as healthy as the healthiest of almost all of them because she's lived a clean life.
Mm-hmm.
So that family, they had a huge farm. It was like a state park. I think they owned about 600 some acres, had a couple of ponds, a creek. tobacco barn. They grew tobacco. Grandpa grew tobacco. That was the cash crop back in the day. They used the money that they got from that to buy their seeds, flour, and sugar, and shoes. Basically, that was it. A lot of great memories with both of the grandparents. When I was going in second grade, we moved to Pennsylvania, lived there for a year. My dad started a job on the Ohio Pipeline. We lived close to the Maryland border. It was in second grade when Kennedy was shot. I remember that very distinctly. We were real close to D.C. And then we moved to Ohio, and I pretty much grew up in Ohio and loved it there because in Kentucky, we had all of our family, which was wonderful, but we didn't really have – we had maybe a few friends and cousins to hang out with. But in Ohio, it was wonderful, the subdivision that we lived in. Lots of kids. Everybody had 4 or 5 kids. It was great. Then what happened, actually, it happens in a lot of families, very dysfunctional. My dad, working on the pipeline, he'd be gone for weeks at a time, maybe months at a time. And then he'd come home. And unfortunately, he was an alcoholic and he was a mean drunk. So when I was about 10 years old, things kind of went from bad to worse. And my parents divorced. We moved away from that area. And that was kind of tough because I'd had all those friends, even though that was only for a few years. And it was at that time that actually my mom, someone that she worked with, invited her to church. And so we started going to church. Now, when I was in Kentucky, actually, we went to church. Maybe we were like the Creasters, Christmas and Easter, maybe. And I actually enjoyed going to the church. And it was wonderful for us going to Sunday school. So basically, it was on a Sunday. You go to Sunday school, then the church service, and then you'd come back at night and go to a service. And then we also had service on Wednesday nights. The church at that time probably had, I don't know, maybe 500 people, which was a lot for a church. So we kind of outgrew the building. They bought this property and built a huge mega church. I loved it because everybody pitched in and helped build that church. So anybody that was an electrician, whatever, it was a very, very expensive to build that church back in the day. It got paid off right away just because everybody was faithful, with their tithes and everything else. I know I had a relationship with Christ then. I was actually baptized when I was 10. Once we moved in the new church, and I actually, I sang in the choir, loved that. We had a young people's group. That was great to go to. The parents of all of us would host maybe once a month, all of us young people, and we'd go. And that way we could just kind of be together and get to know one another and just have a good time together. So things were pretty good until my mom remarried my stepdad, Pop. I'm going to just say he was in lust with my mom. She just was trying to take care of us kids. What I want to say about this, God was talking to me about this. If you're in a relationship with anyone, you're a single parent, or you're not even married yet, you really need to have those talks, about the children, because he wanted her, but he sure didn't want us.
It's always hard. Somebody, I'm sure, needed to hear that.
Take your time. We're not in any hurry here.
I think the thing with that too is that sometimes you wait so long to meet somebody and you want them to be the right person.
Right.
And they're just not.
Yeah. And for my mom, a good friend of mine, actually, we were talking about things because, we went to church together and everything. And she said, Ann, she said, your mom never had a healthy relationship. And that was true. She never had a healthy relationship with my dad and with my stepdad. He just wanted her. I mean, she even told me that he wanted to just have us go to be with our grandparents so he could just be there with her. And she said no. So I was glad about that. She was a good mom. She did the best that she could. And I knew she did. And I love her to death. But there were a lot of things that happened that it's taken time to heal.
It does. Those wounds run so deep. It's funny how it scars you even into adulthood. I'm always amazed that things that happened as a child, it's like you carry it forward and you can't just shake it loose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, with my stepdad, I'll just say just a little bit about him. He was more than twice as old as my mom. He was very well-to-do, had a beautiful, gorgeous home. Even though he had this beautiful, gorgeous home, just really terrible things happened. anyway, that's all I'm going to say on it for now. I'm not going to unpack all of that. That marriage lasted. They actually got divorced the year that I was graduating from high school. It was kind of cool because actually we had the house to ourselves until they got divorced and everything got settled up. But at that time, I had already made my mind up that I was going to go live with my dad because I was graduating. Things at church, I initially had that good relationship with Christ, but what happened, the church that I was going to was very legalistic, and it became even more so. So between that legalism and what happened at home just left a horrible taste in my mouth, and I was just done with it all.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if this is...
Right. Because you have no refuge at that point.
Well, the church was probably a place to feel relaxed, feel...
You would hope so.
Yeah, there were definitely good things about the church. Basically, it was like we were in a cult between the church and then the restrictions that we had at home were just crazy. I mean, we weren't allowed to have friends. We weren't allowed to talk to anybody on the phone. So basically...
It was about control.
It was. Anyway, I decided I'm going to go, the day I graduated, I'm going to go be with my dad. He was there for my graduation. We left right afterwards. Let's just say that wasn't a good idea for me to do that, to be there with my dad. But God protected me, even though I made stupid mistakes. He protected me. He was there for me. I actually ended up just staying with him for a little bit of time and then went to my paternal grandparents and stayed with them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I wanted to go back home. And I asked my mom if I could come back home. And she said, yes, but only if you abide by the dress code and all of that. So basically, no makeup, no jewelry, no, basically it was almost no to everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
yeah, super restrictive.
But actually we kind of made a deal. I said, okay, Mom, I'm a good girl. I will do everything, but I'm not going to go back to that lifestyle of the dressing and all, And she was like, okay, she was okay with that. So I came back home and actually got a job back at State Farm, was there working for a couple of months, and I thought things were going well. It was decided that I was a bad influence on my younger sister. So.
What did you do to allegedly be a bad influence to your younger sister?
I knew how to sew from home ec, and my mom was a seamstress, she started sewing when she was 9.
Mm-hmm.
She made all of our clothes for us. She was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I left home, I took those scissors and cut all my clothes off to mini skirts and was wearing makeup, and that was it. I was a bad influence. That was it. I wasn't doing anything crazy, but that was it. So I decided, and of course I still really don't have any friends because we weren't allowed to, and I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go. So I get the bright idea, I'm going to hitchhike and I'm going to go to Florida because my oldest sister had left home. Actually, when she was a senior, her senior year, she went to the Y and had a room there. And then from there, she left and went to Tampa. We had family down there, my uncle.
So what year would you say this is?
It was in 74.
Okay. So
For
that
me.
was pretty common back in the 70s, right? For people to hitchhike.
Yeah, it was. But being a young person, we'd heard these horror stories that, truck drivers or whatever pick somebody up and, kill them or whatever. And so I knew that was a possibility. So I told my younger sister what I was doing. I said, I can't take it. I left. It was probably mid-morning or whatever. I had my a few clothes packed. And of course, I'm scared to death. I never hitchhiked before in my life. We didn't have any kind of freedom like that. I walked probably 13 miles until it was dark. And I thought, okay, I better stick my
Did you have a
thumb out.
destination in mind, or did you just
Florida.
go?
Florida.
Oh, okay.
But what I was doing, so Newark is real close to Columbus, Ohio, and I figured I'm going to go that way and maybe get on the interstate, get on 70, 775. And so what I did, God was with me because it's dark, and I put my thumb out, and the first person that picks me up is a state trooper.
Thank goodness.
And he says, do you have a driver's license? And I did. And I looked a lot younger than I was. He said, no, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to take you over to the interstate. You're going to have a better chance of getting a ride. And I said, thank you very much. And so he took me right there to the intersection. He had his lights on, and I get out. Immediately, somebody's there to give me a ride. It's a young man that's about 4 years older than me. He's all curious, like, what's going on, And I was like, well, I'm just trying to make my way to Florida. He said, well, I'm going over to Columbus. And I said, well, that'll get me that far. So, yeah, I'll take a ride with you. Well, we ended up going to his uncle's. He was actually over there to get weed from his uncle.
That's typically where you get it from.
Right.
The uncles was hilarious.
Yeah.
So we're over there, and I'm still kind of scared. I mean, and I never smoked pot. I never even, although I could have smoked cigarettes as a kid. At 10 years old, my uncle gave me a cigarette, and I took one puff and said, no, thanks. But anyway, we went over there, and I thought, well, this might be okay. We hung out. We ended up staying the night over there, and then he asked if, I wanted to go back with him to his place, and he lived with his parents. And I was like, okay, they lived on the lake. His mother was just amazing. She immediately accepted me. His dad didn't say boo to me. He's looking at me like, what are you doing here,
Mm-hmm.
End up staying with him. I get pregnant. Even though I really actually loved his family better than I did him, really. I mean, I wasn't sure about this. Both of our moms talked us into getting married. So we got married. He actually started cheating on me before we even got married.
Jeez.
And he would go out, get drunk, get arrested. And after the third time that this happened, and I'm 4 months pregnant, I'm working. By this time, I've got a good job, the company that I end up making a career with. So I get a call 2:00 in the morning, and it's winter. There's about, 4 feet of snow on the ground. And I get a call, and he wants me to come get him out of jail. And I'm like, nope, sorry. Father-in-law just happened to be in the hospital at that time. And so it was just my mother-in-law and I, and she comes down and she's all worried and upset and everything. And I said, I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry. I can't. I have to protect me and my baby, my unborn baby. I said, I'm out of here. She was so upset that I was leaving and she was going to be there by herself. And she was a sweetheart, but she told me she was going to commit suicide.
Oh no.
And I said, I will call 911. I'm sorry, but this just makes me sick and it's not good for me. And I can't do it. And so I left. She didn't do anything, but she was just,
Mm-hmm.
I think she was at her wit's end. I drove over to my mom's. I didn't even call. I just drove over and she accepted me back in and I ended up staying over there with her. We had all planned on going to Florida, my in-laws and my husband and I, because they were getting ready to retire like in a year. And we had plans to go after my daughter was born. We were going to go to Florida. We were going to stop at my sister's in Tampa and then go down to her family in Fort Myers. And I really wanted to go. I did end up going on that trip with them.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them, but I knew I wasn't going to get back with my ex or we were separated. I knew I wasn't going to get back with him. When on the road trip down, everything was good. We got to my sister's. A friend of mine that I really had the hugest crush on in high school had actually contacted me like before we went on the trip. And I really should have just been straight up honest with him about what I was doing. I knew I wasn't going to get back with my ex, and I really wanted to be with him. But we had just seen each other. That was it. Well, he didn't even have my number. I didn't give him my phone number, my sister's number. He called my brother and said, "Hey, do you have her number? I know she's going to Florida." So he calls my sister's house, and my husband answers the phone. Let's just say it wasn't nice.
Mm-hmm.
Pot started flower pots. He broke flower pots. He choked me, tried to choke me. It was okay for him to cheat on me all this time and do all that. And anyway,
even the thought
of it. So we only end up staying there maybe a day with my sister and her boyfriend. And we go down to Fort Myers. I think that first night we were there, he tried to choke me again. I got a phone call. It was actually that next day. My brother Marlon had been in a bad accident. He and his friends had hopped a train where the train connects, the cars connect. He was on that, got his leg caught in it, his foot caught in it. It was a bad situation. He was in close to West Virginia, Pennsylvania. So my sister called me and said, "Hey, this happened." And I was like, "Well, can you come get me? Because I want to go home." So that was God. I believe that was God. So I flew flew back home. So I still didn't get divorced just because I didn't have the money to pay for a lawyer or whatever. So go forward 2 years. I have my own place now, and I'm raising my daughter. The grandparents are still involved and seeing her. They had actually retired. They both worked for Owens, Illinois. They both retired, and they were actually in Florida again. And I get a call from my ex, and he's in jail once again. And this time it's serious. And he wants me to call mom and dad. I am so upset. I'm like, really? Your parents are retired. They should be enjoying the time of their lives. And this happened? So anyway, I did call them. But right after that happened, I went ahead and managed to find the money and got a divorce because it wasn't good. Let's just say that. I kind of went into shock, very depressed. The in-laws, I still love them and I wanted them to be around my daughter. But they were like manipulating me. They wanted me to allow her to go see him. I was like, no. And
how old would you say you were at this point?
Let's see. Angela was, my daughter was 2 when it happened. So 22, 23.
You're still really young.
I am. Yeah.
Gosh.
But the thing was, so I was really kind of torn because I wanted to please them and I wanted to still be in their lives. I didn't want to do this. I said, well, what are you going to, no, because no, it's just not right because of the situation. And they're like, oh, what are you going to tell her? What story are you going to tell her, about where her dad is? Because she doesn't understand any of this. And they're like, oh, well, we could say it was something to do with a gun or something like that. I'm like, no, we're not lying. No. But they wore me down. And I got to thinking, okay, well, my dad had gotten into trouble. Well, my dad actually was restricted from seeing us. But looking back in hindsight, yeah, that was the best thing because he was not a good person. I did go with her once, maybe twice. And then I said, no, we're done. I'm not going to do it again. And they actually took me to court because I didn't want her going over there because they would ask her, do you want to go see your daddy?
Right. Yeah.
So that's when I put my foot down and said no. They actually took me to court and they got rights to see her. And I wasn't trying to withhold, them from seeing her because they were wonderful. They were good to me. I just didn't want this whole situation going on. So that happened. They were not allowed to take her anymore. But at that point, I decided, I need a change of scenery. I decided that I was going to quit my job and move to Florida and just get away from town. And I did that. That was in in the early 80s. When I got to Florida, I realized, I was in Tampa, I realized that unless you're working for a really good company, sunshine is part of the pay package. And I wasn't even making half of what I was in Ohio, even though I was with initially I was with my older sister. Mom and I had an apartment, and then it didn't take long. I was able to get something else, but I was just so upset because, I really wasn't making, I was struggling. So I actually decided to reach out to my former employer in Ohio and ask if I could come back and get a job. Yes, I could. And so I did. We moved back, and I was only there maybe 3 months or so. While I was in Tampa, I had actually filled out an application. There were no openings. There were only 2 admin positions available. The person who was responsible for that office, she was a regional manager. She knew me. She was actually the HR assistant when I worked in Ohio. She called me up and she said, I just found out that you're back in Ohio. She said, I never would have called you if I'd known you were back here. And I said, what would the possibility be of going back? Because I really would like to go back. And she says, you're hired. Oh. And she said, but we can't pay for your moving costs or anything like that. I said, that's fine. And she says, now your boss, Dick, he's not going to be too happy. He just gave you this job. And I said, well, hopefully everything will be okay. Moved back to Florida. It was wonderful. I got a great job. Was there for, in that office, I think I was there maybe 6 or 7 years. It was about this time, probably it was in like 84, that I met husband number 2. And we met at a party. He was from England. He was actually, he had lost his job in England. He worked for a big printing company and had been with them. He did his apprenticeship, 5-year apprenticeship, and had been with them for 15 years. And their company got sold out. They'd been in business for 100 years. They got sold out. He got a pay package. He was in Tampa. And he was actually house sitting for his good friends that were spending Christmas in England. The rest of that's history. We dated and got married, and life was good. I thought life was good. Getting back to relationships and so forth, I mean, I guess I'm so naive. I thought that when you got married, you really didn't have to talk about if you wanted to have children or whatever, you know. We were married 3 years, and things were great. He accepted my daughter, get pregnant. He seems happy and everything, but he actually stopped being a husband to me after I had my son. It was tough, but I hung in there. I mean, I'm working. We're both working. He works nights. I'm working. I'm taking care of a teenager and a baby. But life was good. I mean, we had a good house and things were going well. It was right at this time that my company made an announcement that their agricultural business was forming a partnership with another company in Indianapolis, and it was going to be huge. The position that I had in Tampa, I had already basically gone as high as I could, the level that I could, and just said to me, why don't you ask your manager if you could possibly go to Indianapolis where this new joint venture is going to be. And so I did. And she said, absolutely, under one condition, if you'll come work in the sales office for me for a year. Mm-hmm. And then she says, because I'm losing all of my people. I said, absolutely. She was amazing. Carol Moore. She paid for all of our costs for moving. They bought our house for us because we had that house built. It was only, 3 years old. So we got to Indianapolis, put us up in the Embassy Suites for a month because all these people were coming in town that were coming to join this new joint venture from all over from Midland and Midland, Michigan and all. Life was good again. It took us probably a couple months to find a house, but they put us up that whole time. They even helped my husband find a job. But it was great because my daughter was going in. She was a freshman starting high school. Of course, they both did not want to leave Florida. My job was more stable. Anyway, we went and my daughter says, I'll go, but I have to be there for the first day of school. I'm like, okay. So my husband took her to school. It was probably a 25-mile drive just from where we were staying to where we knew we were going to move to the school system. So that all worked out great. I asked if we could have counseling. My husband, I said, he wouldn't talk to me and tell me anything. I mean, communication is so important. And people don't realize how important it is. Why can't we just talk about things? But some people can't. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we were in counseling for 2 years and the counselor gave up on us. Basically, he wanted to talk about how
we can text about them.
Right. He didn't like the printing industry in the U.S. versus England. And that's all I heard about. We ended up getting a divorce. Basically, I have a child that's going in kindergarten and a child that's going off to college. Mm-hmm. And all this is happening. But we got through all of that. It was probably a couple years after that I met number 3. I was trying to be more careful this time. And I basically, back then, it was an ad in the paper. I said I wanted a non-smoker, non-drinker, non-drugs. Basically, he was I thought we were a good fit. We enjoyed each other's company and everything. He had a good job. He loved, my son. I thought he did. He lied about smoking and drinking. He wasn't on drugs, but unfortunately, he was this alcoholic that could go for months and not have anything. But if he had one drop, that was it. He could not stop. He would drink himself into a stupor. And after that happened like 4 times, I said, nope, this is not a good role model for my son. He was a CPA. I wanted to go visit my family in Ohio. And when we came back, he was passed out on the floor in his vomit. I thought he was dead with the dogs around him and stuff. And that was it. Okay. I guess one thing I would say about relationships for me, I think it was kind of hard for me to actually have a good relationship just because of all the restrictions that we had. I just wanted somebody to love me. Yeah. And I wanted to give them love and and have love, and it just didn't happen. But you know what? I didn't have the thing is, I didn't have the relationship with Christ, and that's the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was about ready to ask, where was Jesus in all of this?
Exactly. He wasn't. He was in part of it, maybe my second marriage, because we did start going to church at a Unity Church, and he was the one that was like, he didn't go to Church of England. That was it. Actually, I told him, I says, when we get married, I want to get married in church. I want to do it right. Or I want to get married by a pastor anyway. Mm-hmm. And we did that. And we actually started going to church, and that was kind of planting seeds. The one thing I did wrong, but God helped with throughout all of this, my daughter actually brought me back to Christ, because when she was in high school, there was a group of kids that would meet. She made friends right away, and there was probably at least a dozen of them. Mm-hmm. And they were good Christian friends, and they actually would meet at school before school started. And she started going to church and invited me to go, and I'd go when I could. So she was planting those seeds back in me. Because what happened, the church that I was in, I know that there were a lot of good people there, and I know that, the word was being preached. There was a point where it was actually like in your face. And if you did all this, you're going straight to hell, Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can never do this. So, and I didn't know anything else. We weren't allowed to go to any other churches. I didn't even try to go to any other churches. Mm-hmm. And God brought me back into the fold. It wasn't actually until I moved here to Florida. I moved here after I retired in 2010. I would actually, when I would come down to visit the kids from Indiana, I would go to church with them. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved down, I actually accepted Christ as my Savior once again. And it's been wonderful that I've actually been able to get deeper into the Word and actually learn, because there was a point when I was, young. Yeah, I just blocked it out. If you're up there screaming and shouting at me mm-hmm. and telling me thou shalt not do anything, I'm tuned out. It was a blessing to go somewhere and see something different and to come back to Christ. And I've had struggles. So actually, this past week, it was a huge breakthrough, because I know people keep saying, why can't you just let that stuff go? Well, only God knows your story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as much as you try, even asking Him, sometimes it's tough. Mm-hmm. But I tell you, we went to a retreat last week, and mm-hmm. it was amazing. And that was meant to be, it really helped me to look at things even in a different perspective, just from all the wonderful people, the ladies that were there at the retreat, sharing their stories. And mm-hmm. I felt like God really helped me to, because I know I thought I had forgiven myself, but I hadn't really, and I still had all that baggage. Because what would happen would be, the enemy always tries to, when you're trying to follow Christ, he's always there, trying to tempt you or whatever, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. In my mind, I'd be like, well, I'm not really sure. Am I doing the right thing? Is this really right, what I'm doing? And I wasn't actually following everything that I should have, because I'm still thinking I had to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And that was part of growing up. My mom expected perfection. Mm-hmm. And it had to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And so I was this perfectionist, had to go to the nth to do everything. And I was even like ordering my brothers and sisters around, because I basically cleaned the house. I was a sous chef. I did all this stuff. She pretty much left me alone because I was doing all this stuff. But that was so ingrained in me that everything has to be perfect. Mm. And I thought that I had to be perfect. And if I made mistakes or whatever, that I wouldn't be right with God and I couldn't go to heaven. But now I know that none of us are perfect, but Jesus Christ.
Right.
We're all perfectly imperfect, mm-hmm. and we make mistakes.
Amen to that.
All needing Jesus.
We can get back up again.
He loves us despite us.
That's right. So one of the things I'm doing differently now is I get up in the morning and I start listening to worship music. Mm-hmm. I love my little Google Mini. Mm-hmm. I'll say, okay, Google, play Lauren Daigle or play Matthew West or mm-hmm. whatever. Get into that and then have myself some tea and get into the Bible and then just get out of myself and start doing for others.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Being the feet and
mm-hmm.
hands of Jesus.
I see that in you constantly.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my favorite things about you, which I don't think you get enough credit for, is I love the fact that you are a free spirit. You know, you really are. You're light and bubbly and happy and joyful.
Thank you.
And it's my favorite thing about you.
Well,
Yeah.
I think because I felt so different growing up that it was almost like I was a magnet for other people, that they would come to me, because I accepted everybody, you know, until you prove me wrong because of what we've been through. You know, I wanted to be there for other people. So I like different, you know.
I'm just so grateful that you chose to share your story with us, Angie.
Yes, thank you so
for
much.
having me.
Thank you.
Somebody needed to hear all that. And there isn't a soul left on Mixler.
Well, they're waiting to hear.
They're waiting to hear the
Okay.
news. I'm going to tell you
the lie.
All right.
But before you do that, Angie, I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to say that God is, as you know, which I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but I want to profess it. God is a God of restoration, and He is restoring your life.
Yes, He
and
is.
your story is not finished being written yet.
Yes.
And I guarantee that He is going to restore all areas of your life. I see it.
Yes, I truly
happening.
believe that. I do.
As you continue to surrender areas of your life, He will continue to restore.
Absolutely. I believe that.
And you know, we're your family here.
Yes.
So we'll
Got
have a
that
front row seat
All
to
right.
it all.
Thank you. So are we ready for the
I
reveal?
think they are.
All right.
Are we? Okay. Well,
Do any of you want to guess?
the overwhelming majority says number 2.
Number 2. Okay.
I'll say number 3, just because I'm like that.
All right.
I'm thinking it's 2.
Okay.
Robert Herman, you didn't weigh in. I'm disappointed.
Really?
So number 2 was at the music.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, that's correct. And the thing that was a lie was that they said no instead of yes.
Oh.
So no to my brother and sister. No, they could not have free lessons.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely not. Even though they would have been fully paid for and they felt like they were really gifted, the answer was no instead of yes.
From your parents?
From my parents.
So number 2 was the official lie.
Yes.
Well,
Wow.
everybody online got it right. It was overwhelming, number 2.
All right.
Robert Herman did weigh in, number
He did.
2.
He
Yeah, sure did.
But the rest of it
But the
is
rest
true,
of it is
right?
true. The rest of it is true. Emmylou Harris is my cousin. All the rest of that is true.
Moonshine.
Your brother sang with the Beach Boys?
Okay. So that's very interesting.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's a story he loved to tell his students. So it's kind of like an admission. So he loved the Beach Boys back in the day,
Mhm.
right? And he had
Who
this.
didn't?
Right? And
I didn't.
He would be driving around town, and he even had one of these PA systems in his car, right?
Oh,
He'd be
wow.
singing and shouting out to the ladies.
Uh-huh.
So that's how he was singing with them in
Uh-huh.
the car, singing with them.
Oh, how
Okay.
cute is that?
All right. And so he was on the cover of an album,
Oh,
but it wasn't the Beach Boys But it wasn't the Beach Boys. It was our choir album.
oh, nice. And he's listening today, right?
He is. And there was one other thing that he used to say with that, and I don't remember what it was, but there were 3 things, and the kids just always like, what?
Well, why don't you give your brother a shout out?
Hey, Barry, I love you, big brother. I love you and Linda and all the family.
Awesome.
I'm not sure who's on, but there was like 8 on at one time, and I couldn't
Tell who they were.
tell who they were, but
Yeah, I gave him the
they were
instructions.
on. Some were on, at least
Yeah.
partially.
Well, I know that we've been asking you for a while, and
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful that you said yes. So thank you again.
Yes, thanks for having me. You know, God really convicted me. It was when at FUMC, Pastor Chris was doing the Slaying Giants.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And one of those characters was Barry Bitter.
Oh,
That's not a very common name.
right.
Very
And,
bitterness.
Very bitter.
Yeah.
But all of those, I mean, that really, God was convicting me through that whole series.
You should tell him that. You should. That would
Yes.
bless him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, sitting down, going through this, it's healing in itself, talking about it
Yes.
and getting it out into the open.
It really is. I think it's part of the journey.
Mhm.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's like freedom, you know. I
It
mean,
is.
It is.
Truth shall set you free.
That's right.
It shall. Amen.
What?
The truth.
The Massachusetts.
The
I'm
tutu.
Mikey from Massachusetts. I couldn't resist that, Mike. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sure.
That was
Well, Miss Angie, I just love and adore you. I
Well,
really do.
same goes.
And thank you.
I'm so thankful and grateful that you all have been in our lives. I actually met Tina and Fritz. They used to be the leaders of a singles group, and you two are amazing. And I love listening to God Stories Radio and hearing all of you, and just the wealth that God has given you with the Scripture and everything else. You're just all such a blessing to me.
we
well,
are.
we're a
Well, thank
blessing
you.
because you're a blessing.
That's right.
And you choose to bless us, which keeps us going.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't thank you enough for that.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And we are just trying to radiate the Father's glory right back to him.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Thank
Amen.
you, Lord.
Trying to bring hope and encouragement to the world through
Yes.
all this pandemic stuff.
And the only reason why there's all these verses are in my head is because I'm in the Word constantly.
Amen.
Mhm.
You have to be. I don't know how you make it, and if you don't.
Right?
Any other
So
I just got myself a new Bible. I
one?
decided
Nice.
Oh, good
to
for
get
you.
a different version. This is the English Standard version, I believe.
okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And
ESV.
yeah, I grew up on the King James version. Love all
Oh.
the versions, but I'm getting deeper into the Word all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. And I just discovered something new on Spotify, which I may as well just share real quick too. It's it'll give you a Bible passage every day, and it'll take you through the Bible in a year. And I was just really touched by it.
Spotify?
It's on
Really?
Spotify.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called The Daily Bible. So it's free. You can just pull that up on Spotify, The Daily Bible, and it'll read a passage to you every day. And, if you stick to it every day, you'll have listened to the entire Bible in a year.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So I've been playing catch up, obviously, because I have a lot of extra time.
I like how you say ketchup, and then you put ketchup on your hot dog too. Is that that's the Brit coming out in you, probably?
Yep.
So I don't know. Well, thanks again, Angie, for coming. And hey,
Thank you very much.
listen, if
Thank
you
you for
have a
having me.
testimony, we want to hear from you. godstoriesradio@gmail.com. If you have a testimony, if you're like Angie and you want to come and share, if you want to call in, you can do that. If you want to write in, we've read testimonies before. We'd be more than happy to, because we are God Stories Radio, and we have no problem sharing your God stories. If you'd like to be a guest here in the studio, contact God Stories Radio Tina at gmail.com. Check us out on the web, godstoriesradio.com. You can get to all the podcasts there, every single one of them, back to one. Also, you can get us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, radio.com, Spreaker, Stitcher.
Woo.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and there's
Wow.
more. But
What's your excuse for not listening?
I know, right?
And tell people about us.
Please, we're a free resource, and encouraging you has been our only agenda. How you doing over there, Angie?
Doing
A
great.
little nervous?
No, I'm
You got everything
I'm good
packed
to go.
Okay, I was just checking. She got her new Bible. It's pretty.
That's right. I was so grateful. I Googled to see if there were any Christian bookstores available, because it's sad that there's hardly any bookstores, period.
Yeah, especially the
And
mom and
there's-
pop ones are
Right?
going out.
And there's a wonderful one on 50 if you're going
Yep.
east.
I know where
on
you're talking
Thunder
about.
Drive.
Down
Fit or Fix?
Yep.
Fit.
Fit. Okay. Fit
I've been there
Bible
many
study,
times.
or excuse me, Fit Christian bookstore in what city
Winter
would
Garden.
that be?
I think it's Winter Garden.
Winter Garden or
Yes.
I think it
Ocoee?
is
Yes.
considered, Coe Winter Garden.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shout out to them
Right.
for hanging in there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Shout out to them. Shout out to Mr. J. Calhoun, who got everything right. I'm going to send you a prize. I don't know what that is yet. I think Robert Herman just jumped on the bandwagon, but that's okay.
I
We
think
love
it's
you,
bragging rights
We
anyway.
love you, buddy. I want to thank everybody that's on Mixler. I can't tell. There's a few more people on, but I can't tell who you are. If you follow us, I can see who you are. Although you might not want me to see who you are, because then I will call you out like I do Robert Herman and Jay Calhoun. But I love those. They're my buddies, and they're faithful, and we appreciate them. We appreciate Angie for coming tonight.
Yes.
We just love and appreciate each and every one of you. So that about wraps it up for session 246. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Tina.
God bless.
God bless.
God bless.